Hello and welcome to Mirepoix by Dominic Auger. That's myself. First of all, thank you for ordering for our soft opening. I hope you enjoyed the food as much as I enjoyed making it. So times are a little bit different at the moment. You find you can't go to your bars, your pubs or your restaurants. It's obviously left a lot of chefs out of work. And if you actually know any chefs, you know that we like to be quite busy. So although in paper it sounds like it might be quite nice to have a 4-month holiday, I can tell you after about 2 days the holiday was over. So Mirepoix, obviously there's a lot of restaurants out there doing these takeaways and stuff like that, but I think the end goal is you don't get that sort of restaurant experience. You're not connected to the food. It's delivered to your door, great, and that's sort of up to you to make it look nice. Whereas I think a lot of restaurants, particularly nice ones, you eat with your eyes and you smell it before you actually dig into the food, and that's a big part of eating with me and what I do when I'm eating as well. So what we're going to try and do is each Saturday we're going to bring out a different menu with different flavour combinations that probably aren't that normal, different techniques again which aren't that normal, just things that I like to do. I don't really like to follow the bog standard curve. I'd like to be a little bit different, and hopefully I can open your eyes to see that actually sometimes being different is a lot better. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Okay, so before we get started, I'm just going to give a quick outline of what we're going to do, because we're not going to go straight into starter, then the main and dessert. We're going to do a little bit differently. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start heating up that pork belly before we do the starters. So once we've got the colour on the skin, or the skin side of the pork belly, we're going to put it in the oven and then let that rest up while we start the starter. The reason for doing that is we don't want to get to the end of the starter and then have to wait 40 minutes before we start eating the main course. You see, as soon as we get a check on in the restaurant, it's the same sort of thing. So as soon as you get that check on, starter docket comes through, you see the starter, you see the mains, you can start, if you're cooking a bit of beef for instance, you start cooking that beef straight away. Just take a bit of beef, it's going to take 15-20 minutes to cook and then another 15-20 minutes to rest. So that's why when you go to a restaurant, you have your starter and then you should have about a 15-minute window, that's what we aim for, 15 minutes being the maximum before your main course comes out. Apart from that, I'm also going to apologise because purple sprout and broccoli, they didn't have any British purple sprout and broccoli in the market, so we've actually used tender stem. Don't worry, I did a sample up earlier and it tastes just as good, if not better. Yeah, we weren't really happy with using purple sprout and broccoli from, I think it was Kenya, so that's the reason for that. I hope you don't mind. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the oven on. We're not really going to be using it as an oven, we're going to try and use it as a warming drawer. So if you do have a warming drawer, that will be better, but for the purpose of this video I'm going to use the oven. So we're going to try and set it on its lowest setting. I think most commercial ovens go down to about 50 degrees. Ideally we could go a little bit lower, so if yours does go lower, set it to the lowest it can go, probably about 40 degrees would be prime, but for ours here it's going to go to 50. So I'm just going to set that now. Yeah, perfect. That's going to take a little bit of time to heat up, and we're going to use that later to reheat the fries and just let the pork belly rest through in there. So the main course is made up of 5 different elements. I'll quickly rattle them off and then we'll go into a little bit more detail afterwards. So you've got your confit pork belly, crispy shoestring potatoes, miso broccoli, your tea mayonnaise and your gherkin brine gel. So the confit pork belly, this is confit in duck fat for about 12.5 hours. But before it's confit, we cure it in salt and sugar. So the salt and sugar, it's going to, well, one, sweeten the season of the meat, but it's also going to reduce the water content. If you don't reduce the water content before you confit, you end up boiling the meat instead of actually using a pure confit. But it's also cured in a spice blend, and then it's also got ginger going through there and a little bit of garlic. On to the crispy shoestring potatoes. So these are mandolin nice and thin, fried off, and then dehydrated and just finish with a little bit of the gherkin salt. So gherkin salt is pretty much what it says on the tin. Dehydrated gherkins which were blitzed up to make a nice salt. It's going to add a little bit of saltiness, but mainly a sweetness and a vinegarariness that comes with the gherkins. The miso broccoli, so this is purple sprout and broccoli. It's been marinated in a miso butter blend. Also got a little bit of rapeseed in there which adds a bit of a nutty flavour to it without actually having any nuts in it. And then the tea mayonnaise. So this is a black loose leaf tea mayonnaise. It's really easy to make. I really recommend trying to make this at home. Mayonnaise is one of those things that you can just, you get the base mayonnaise and you add and you play and you put whatever you want with it, and it turns out pretty awesome. And then you've got the gherkin brine gel. So obviously earlier we dehydrated the gherkins. Instead of throwing away all that brine liquor, we set it, make it into a jelly, and blitz up to make this gel. So this again, going to have a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of vinegariness. It's going to cut through some of that fat on the comfy pork belly. So you're going to need a few bits of equipment to heat this dish up. Ideally, 2 frying pans. If you've only got one, don't worry. We'll heat the pork belly up first. We can put that in the oven rest, and then we can do the broccoli separately. You'll also need a baking tray just to heat the shoestring potatoes up. It doesn't have to be as big as this, but working in a home kitchen, I know we don't have the same sort of equipment we do in a commercial kitchen. So, whatever you've got will be fine. As long as it's oven proof, don't worry. And lastly, we're going to need a saucepan. It doesn't have to be this small, it could be slightly bigger. We're not going to cook in it, we're just going to use this as a weight on top of the pork belly as it starts to heat up, just to make sure that skin gets a nice even colour. Right, so I'm just going to put a little piece of greaseproof down. Shouldn't need it, but better to be safe than sorry. And then empty your shoestring fries onto the top of it. And then we'll add that in the oven once it gets hot in a second. So now, I'm going to get my frying pan on the heat. Okay, so I'm going to put this frying pan on quite low. So on this hob, it goes up to about 9. I'm going to put it on 5 at the beginning. There's not really any oil, because if you look at the marbling going through that piece of pork belly, there's a lot of fat, and you're going to see that all come out. So you don't need to add extra oil to that at all. So we're not going to put it in straight away. We're going to let it get a little bit warm. Obviously, this being induction, it's not going to take long at all. So you can just feel the base of the pan. Obviously, don't do that if it starts getting really hot. I will not be liable for you burning yourself. So yeah, you can just feel it starting to get a little bit warmer. So I'll grab my piece of pork belly. And you can see, if you look at the piece of pork belly, there's 2 sides to it. You've got the underside, this is the inner side of the animal, and then the outer side here, so the skin was on the outside. We want to put it skin side face down. And just pop it in the middle. Give it a nice little press, pop it in the middle, and you can sort of forget about it for a little bit. But the next thing to do is get your saucepan and just pop it on top. So this is just going to make sure you get a nice even amount of cooking throughout the thing. If you have like a steak press or a burger press, something that you use on the barbecue, that works even better, but this will work just as fine as well. So the pork belly now has been on for about 5 minutes. You can just see the fat starting to come out. So you give it a nice little push, you see it all just coming out the side. Now that's the reason why you don't want to put any oil in there at the beginning, because you end up frying the pork belly instead of just heating it up, almost like a deep fry. When you take the pan off, just make sure you give the corners a nice little press down to make sure the whole thing is heating up nice and evenly. You also just give it a little pick up, make sure that fat's getting underneath, and then push it back down, and then get your weight back on top. I think as well, it's important to note that you don't want to be tempted to turn this up. This is going to take about 20 to 25 minutes on the pan just to heat up fully, but the end result will be a lot better. Right, so this has now been about 7 to 10 minutes on here. You just want to keep every now and again taking the pan off. Make sure you place it upside down so you don't get the fat on your clean workspace. Just giving it a nice little lift and just checking where it's colouring the most. You can see it's colouring slightly more on this side, so it probably means you want to just give the other side a little bit more of a press down. If you think if it's starting to brown too quickly, turn the heat down. And if it's not browned at all, turn the heat up slightly. So like I said, I'm on 4 now out of 9, so it's almost about half heat. But this will vary obviously on every different hob. Right guys, so the pork now has been in the pan for about 26 minutes. You can see we've got a nice even golden brown along the top. You don't want too much colour, you want it to be more like a noisette, hazelnut sort of brown colour. What we're going to do now is we're going to pop that in the warming drawer, the oven or the actual warming drawer. What that's going to do is let the meat rest up for a little bit while we start the mushroom starter. It's also going to give the fries a little bit of time to heat through. With these potatoes, they're not going to be piping hot. They don't want to be sort of out of the fry, burn your mouth. They just want to have a little bit of warmth to them. So we don't need to heat them fully at all. So I'm just going to put this in here. Again, this is on super low, 50 degrees, and now we can start on the starter, and then once we've finished eating the starter, we can go straight for the main course, and we won't have to worry about waiting half an hour, 40 minutes for us to plate that up. Okay, now that the pork's resting, we're going to start on the starter, the mushrooms on toast. So in your box, you should have a box like this. This is containing the mushrooms, a little sachet with the set powder, got a piping bag of soy gel, and then you should have 2 vat pack bags. This one here is the mushroom ketchup, and this one is the caramelised yogurt. So caramelised yogurt, pretty self-explanatory, it's caramelised yogurt, but caramelisation is bringing out the sugars in whatever you're caramelising. So if you're caramelising an onion, you take it to that dark colour. Same with the yogurt, you're bringing out the sugars in it, so you'll find that it's got a deeper sweetness than traditional yogurt. Personally, I think it's a lot richer as well, which works really well with like savoury flavours. So you've got that sweet, dark flavour coming through, which goes well with a savoury, salty mushroom. The mushroom ketchup, made in a little bit of a non-traditional method, so made it in a sort of Asian style method, I'd like to call it. You'll find if you're making sauces in like a European style, traditionally at the beginning, it's a lot of heat to get caramelisation, to get colour on the veg. Whereas you find if you make an Asian sauce, that first bit is a lot slower, so they turn it right down. It takes a lot longer to get the sweetness coming out, but then I think the end product, particularly for mushroom ketchup, and for other spicy sauces and anything really containing onions, is a better end product. So I'll just quickly go through what's in the box. Just be a little bit careful when you open this, so there is quite a lot in there. So first of all, you'll see your bread crouton. Just pop that to one side. This little J cloth, just be careful with this, this contains herbs. So in there we've got chives and parsley, just mixed up together. That's explain why we need that later. Then there's this little bit of parchment paper here. So on this one, the first one you'll find is the pickles. So we've got 2 different types of pickles here. You've got the shimaji pickled mushrooms, and then you've got your pickled onions. So the pickled onions, this contains in a walnut pickle. So instead of, earlier in the year I pickled some walnuts, which adds flavour to the pickling liquor that it had itself. So instead of throwing away that pickled liquor when we'd used the walnuts, I kept it. And at the time, the little British shallots had to be in season, so there were absolutely loads of them, great price. Chuck them in the liquor and just sort of forget about them. You get a lovely sort of nutty flavour coming through, but without being overpowering. It's also quite a sweet pickle. So the shimaji mushrooms, that's much more white wine vinegar in that pickle, so it's going to be a lot harsher, but the two together will balance out, and then you find the shimaji mushrooms work really well with the sweetness of the caramelised yogurt. Go a little bit deeper into the box, you find you've got a half chestnut mushroom. So this later, well in a minute, we're going to get nice little slices off it, and these are just going to go raw on the plate at the end, so it's going to add a nice little white contrast to otherwise a dark plate of food. You've got your king oyster mushroom slice, just king oyster mushroom slice. Should have 3 of these shiitake mushrooms, and then 3 more raw shimaji mushrooms. And at the bottom there's 1 more bit of parchment paper, and this contains the cooked mushrooms. So in here we've got 2 different types of oyster mushrooms. You've got grey oyster mushrooms and pink oyster mushrooms. Obviously, apart from having a different colour, they've got a different flavour as well. I tend to find the pink oyster mushrooms have the flavour of honey. It's not the sweetness of honey, but that raw flavour of honey, which works really nicely in this dish. And then at the bottom of the box, you've got a little variety of diced mushrooms. So in there we've got more of the Paris cups, the chestnut mushrooms, sorry, the king oysters, and then the shimaji stems. Alright, so moving on to the other little thing here. So this is the set powder. Basically, exactly what it says in the tin, dehydrated set. So again, when they're in season, when there's a glut of them, or to be honest, right at the end of the season when they're slightly cheaper, you get like the second class ones, they're great for dehydrating. So what you do is you slap them in a dehydrator or an oven really low, let them dry out completely, and then just blitz them up to a fine powder. And that's going to be used for presentation at the end. Alright, so now we've gone through that, I'll just quickly rattle off the little bits of equipment you're going to need. Oh sorry, and the soy gel. So soy sauce, set into a jelly and then blitzed up. So this is going to be the salty element of the dish. So we are going to use a little bit of salt while cooking the mushrooms, but this is going to add that final salt, that umami salt flavour at the end. Okay, so equipment you're going to need. I've got 2 trays here. One for the raw mushrooms that I'm going to put out and I'll show you what to do in a minute. And then one with a little bit of paper on the bottom for the cooked mushrooms afterwards. You're also going to need 1 saucepan. It doesn't have to be as big as this, but this is the only size I have. And that's going to be to cook the diced mushroom mix. You also need 1 frying pan. Any size will do. You won't need it much bigger than this. It's for the croutons and then for the mushrooms afterwards. A tea sieve. If you don't have a tea sieve, just use a big sieve. That will work absolutely fine. Just try and get it right in the middle. A spoon, well, a couple of spoons. So 1 for cooking, and then we're going to use for the tea sieve later. I'll show you what I mean later. And then you're going to want a Rocher spoon. So Rocher spoons, anything with a nice good amount of depth on it, nice sort of angle like this. So if you don't have something with a depth, we'll figure it out later, but you can give it a good go. It doesn't have to be like that, but that's just the sort of definition of it. I've also got 2 containers. So I'll tell you about what I'm going to do later. So I've gone for circular ones. If you don't have containers, just use a couple of mugs. That's going to be absolutely fine as well. Pair of tweezers. Don't worry if you don't need these. I'm not going to use these in this, but these are just for plating. But if you do have them, you can use them to put the onions, the pickled onions and the pickled mushrooms on at the end. Little other bits you're going to need. A little knob of butter. If you don't have butter, don't worry, we can just use a bit of oil. You're also going to want a good quality oil. Not olive oil, so it's a rapeseed oil, something with a high smoking point. You find when the mushrooms go in the pan, you want to get that caramelisation quickly before they go all soggy. The best way to do that is have a really high heat. Obviously olive oil, it's better for dressings, for marinades, it doesn't have that high smoking point. So as soon as you put it in a hot pan, it's going to start burning and it's going to taste like burnt oil. I've also got a little bit of Cornish sea salt. It doesn't have to be this brand, but any sort of decent salt, any sort of salt crystals and flakes like that, it's going to work perfect. But like I said, we're not going to use much of this. This is just going to be to help cook the mushrooms. Okay, so before we start cooking or anything, we're going to get a little bit organised. So I find the key to being a good chef is not having a great palate, it's not being able to do the hours, it's about thinking on your feet, and a bit of forward planning goes a long way. So I'm just going to get the mushrooms onto this tray, the raw tray, all without a bit of paper, so I can take them over there and I have a clear distinction between the two. So just get your king oyster, your 3 other mushrooms, your 3 shimajis on there. You can always put your bread crouton, and then you're going to need the cooked little mix. So the ones that come in here, the 2 types of oyster. So that's that, set that to one side, that's great. I've got my little bit of butter already cut off, so I just have to drop it straight in. I'm not going to be, when the mushrooms are starting to colour, I'm not going to be running to the fridge, grabbing a knife, trying to get it out of the foil and what have you. Just ready, perfect to go. I'm also going to now set up for when we're plating. So as soon as those mushrooms come out of the pan, I'm coming back over here and we're plating. Mushrooms are one of those things that you have to treat them with a lot of respect. It's not going to be, you can't cook them and then let them rest for 5 hours. It's not a big bit of beef. They will go soggy, they'll go stringy, and they will not taste nice. It's one of those vegetables that is, vegetables that's very expensive. As soon as you get something like that, you've got to really treat it with respect. There's a reason why they're expensive. Okay, so for setting up the tea sieve, so I've got my little spoon here and my tea sieve just placed on top. So that spoon is just to catch the powder if any falls out, and also later when I bring it across the plate to stop it going on the plate prematurely. If you are using a big sieve, just use a side plate or a lid of some sort underneath just to catch it. Okay, so the best way to open these up, you'll find that there's a top and a bottom. The bottom is it's got no opening in it, it's completely smooth. Whereas the top, if you turn it around, you can find there's a little opening like this. So what you're going to do is you get your finger in there and take this little lip out and then pull the top down to the bottom. And you see there's a little triangle, so you've got the triangle at the top, and it's just a matter of unfolding the left one from the right one. At this point, just be careful because the powder will go everywhere and you don't want to drop it on the floor at this point. So now, we're not going to try and take it out, we're going to use the paper as a funnel. So I've just put my my index finger in there, straighten it out, and I'm just going straight in to the tea sieve. And that spoon's just going to catch any waste that goes down to the bottom. That you can just discard. These mushrooms, they're perfect. Onto slicing the mushrooms. So these are, again, just want them super thin for presentation. They're just going to be put on at the last minute. So just as thin as you can. If you have a mandolin, you can do that as well. And there you go, 3 slices. You might not need all 3 per person, that is. So if you're doing the 7 people, you're probably going to need a lot more than 3, but I'm probably going to use 1 or 2. Now for the soy gel. So I'm going to use a lot of piping bags in the course of this video. I'll just quickly show you the best way to open it. So if you look at them, there's obviously a point at the top. Don't be deceived, that's not where the gel is going to come out of. There's also this, if you look at it, this ridge goes the whole way down, so there's that thickness there. So this part here, this is actually the top of the piping bag. And for this one, we're going to want to cut it super thin. It's literally just a little drizzle on the plate, so the thinner, the easier it is to plate. So again, just hold your finger on there, push it back a little bit, and then just take off the smallest amount of bag. Just make sure as well that you do throw away these little end bits that can get in your food, and you don't want to be eating that halfway through. Just get rid of them straight away, and you won't have that problem. Right, so now that we're set up here, we're going to go across to the cooking station. What you're going to need, last thing, the mushroom ketchup. So we're going to open this now, so again, we're not halfway through cooking the mushrooms, running to get a knife, and freaking out a little bit. So give that a nice little cut along the top. At this point as well, you can just push it away from the bottom. The reason being that, again, halfway through cooking this, it's going to make it a little bit easier. So just push it away from the bottom and fold it over like that. And then just pop that up against the edge of the tray. Again, little bits of plastic, very easy to get into your food. And you don't have to turn your meal sour quite quickly. So yeah, cool. So now we're all set up over here. We're going to go to the cooking station with our mushrooms, our butter, oil, salt, and the little diced mushrooms that I've kept in the bottom of the box, our 2 frying pans and a spoon. I'm also going to fill up one of my containers at this point with a little bit of cold water. Well, it doesn't have to be cold, but I always cook with cold water. That's just going to be to loosen up that mushroom ketchup a little bit if we need it. Alright, cool. So I'll see you over there. Okay, so I'm over here now. As you can see, I've got all the little bits and bobs you're going to need. Just take all the lids off everything so you're ready to go. My raw tray, and then my cooked tray, my different types of mushrooms, my bread crouton, my cooked mushrooms, my mushroom ketchup, my diced mushroom mix, butter, salt, oil, teeny bit of water, and a spoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to get that crouton going. So again, cooking bread in the pan. You could do this in a toaster, but personally I think you get much better flavour in the pan and it gets a nice even coat. And it won't dry out the bread too much in the centre either. So just a little bit of oil, heat this pan up. It's just not too hot, again it's about half heat on the induction. Bear with me, every hob's going to be different, but as long as you're aiming for about half, you don't want it to be colouring straight away, you want it to like a slow caramelisation at the top. With this as well, just a little bit of oil. You don't want to be, we're not aiming for fried toast, we're just helping the sugars in the bread come out a little bit. So let that heat up a little second. Right, when that oil starts to get hot, you see it moving about a little bit on its own accord. Basically means the pan's hot, the oil's hot, it's ready to go. So I'm going to put my bread crouton in. Doesn't matter, either side, straight down. And then just go around the pan a little bit, pushing it down with all 3 fingers, or all 4 fingers. You can even get your 5th one in if you want. And then just leave it in the middle. So again, low and slow with this. We don't want to go too fast because you're going to find you're going to get black, uneven colouring. Right, so this bit of bread now has been on for about, say, 5 minutes, and I'm only still on the same side. So I'm just about to flip it. So you can see it's got a nice sort of crunch to it, and it's like a nice golden colour the whole way through. So I'm going to flip it, and then again, probably another 5 minutes on that side. Okay, so now that the second half of the bread's almost there, I'm going to start on the mushroom mix, and then we're going to fry off the mushroom sort of a la minute right at the end. The mushroom mix you can fry and it can hold for about 5 to 10 minutes, probably up to 15 minutes as long as it stays warm. So this one, I'm going to turn the pan up to max, so 9, like I was saying earlier. Keep cooking mushrooms, loads of heat at the beginning, and then normally add another fat. In the case of this one, I'm going to add mushroom ketchup instead of the fat. So get this one nice and hot. Don't forget about while you're cooking the mushrooms, don't forget about your crouton. Just keep turning her over and checking it. So when that pan's heating up, again this induction, it's not going to take long, it's already getting hot. Just a little bit of oil in there. And then just wait for the oil to start doing its thing. See, it's already getting really hot. So mushrooms straight in. This is all the diced mix, and then just give it a little stir. At this point, a little bit of salt to help break it down and cook. Keep checking the crouton. So now I can see that crouton's done. So I'm just going to put that straight in the warming drawer with the pork as well. Now the crouton's done. We're just going to finish this off. So just chuck in those cooked oyster mushrooms. Again, these have been shop cooked. It keeps them nice and keeps a nice texture to it. They don't want to take long to heat through. So I've just turned the pan down now. We're about 5, and just let that heat through. So I'm going to put that to the back while we start cooking the other mushrooms. So get the front pan. Now I'm going to turn this front pan up again, so it's almost on max. While the back one's heat up. At this point, I'm going to chuck in the mushroom ketchup to the back. So like I was saying earlier, push this all the way up, and then you're going to use your finger like a scissor and just push it all in. And then just obviously get rid of that straight away.
You just want to warm that through a little bit and then turn the pan right down. So I'm going to put that right down to 3. So now this front pan's getting nice and hot. Again, just a little bit more oil. First mushroom to go in, king oyster. So pick the flattest side first and straight down. Give it a little wiggle, and then with your fingers or a spoon, if you don't want to burn yourself, just give it, make sure it's nice and flat. That will just ensure that the colour stays even throughout. If you feel like your mushroom ketchup's getting a little bit dry, just put a little bit of water in, not much, because we don't want this to be wet. We want it's the glue that's going to make the base of the dish. Give it a little flip, that's a nice amount of colour. At this point, chuck in the shiitakes with a little pinch of salt on everything, just a little bit of salt. Remember I said that the majority of the salt in the dish is going to be coming from the soy gel. Once they start to get a bit of colour, the shimaji mushrooms in. So shimaji aren't going to take long at all. And then as soon as you see that starting then they're going to get colour, we'll add the butter. So as soon as you see the colour on the shimajis, hit it with your little bit of butter. See that there? That's perfect. Butter in. Key with cooking with butter, get it in, lift it off the heat, and just keep shaking. What this does is starts the butter to foam, and you get nice and agitated. Then hold it to one side, you see that nice foaming butter. So 30 seconds like that, and that's it. Everything out. All that's doing is adding richness to the end dish. Try not to put too much of the butter on your tray. Now we'll go back over to the other side. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get a nice pot of hot water. So just keep the hot tap running, and this is going to be for that rocher spoon in. You find the hotter the spoon, the easier it's going to rocher. Okay, so I've got my hot spoon heating up. Got my my caramelised yogurt. Going to put that in the other pot. So the last and final pot. Just take the top off it. Again, just get rid of these little bits of plastic. And exactly the same. If it's slightly wider, you can fold it, and then it's the same process really. Perfect. So we'll use that in a minute. Next, the herbs. So we don't put the herbs in when it's cooking because it's going to kill the flavour of the herbs. And that's going in the mushroom mix. If you have a look at this is the sort of consistency you're looking for. So quite sticky, quite a lot of ketchup, there's a lot of good umami flavours coming through in that. So herbs in, chuck them all in, and then give it a nice other mix. Okay, so now onto the plate. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get that soy gel on. The key with these little piping bags then is hold it like a pen. So if you're left-handed in your left hand, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold it in my right hand. And as you're doing your circle or whatever you want to do, you're applying a little bit of pressure. So yeah, for the purpose of this, I'm going to try and do a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, it could be an oval, anything you really want. But the key is to have confidence with it. So don't go slowly, really just pretend you've got a pen and you're pushing and you just draw in a circle. It's the best way to do it. If you do fancy having a few goes first, maybe on a side plate, yeah, give it a little go. And if you don't feel like doing a circle, you can just use a piping bag and do little dots on the plate. Really, you can get creative with it. It's sort of anything you want. So here it goes. So again, just holding it out, a little bit of pressure, and then just going for that circle. Go around a few times. Don't worry if you get a little bit of drip. Like I said, that's just character in the day. That's, you know, you can just argue that that's what you were going for. Alright, so now we've got that, we're going to do the rocher. So again, hot water in your mug or whatever container you got, and you had your spoon sitting in there. If it's gone a bit tepid like mine has, just refill it again. The hotter the spoon, the better. It's going to help the yogurt come away from the spoon. Ideally yours won't be as deep as this, but it'll be okay. So the idea with this is, you're going to go in with your spoon face down, so finger on the back. Just move the plate so you get it wet. Finger on the back of the spoon, you're going to go in and you're trying to scoop up yogurt in the shape of that spoon. So that's why you want a slightly deeper spoon so you can get a little bit more yogurt. So in, Try and fill the spoon up and then just scrape round. Push the bottom bit off and then on whichever side you want, put it down. See, the hotter the spoon, the easier this part is. It just wasn't quite warm enough. And you've got a little bit of a rocher like that. Right, so next, now that that's on, we can start thinking about the hot bread or the toast. Get your bread out of the warming drawer. I'll just pop it on the chopping board here. You can play it on whatever you want. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of soy sauce on this. Just bearing in mind that this is soy sauce, so it is like, it's effectively a salt. So if you're not the biggest fan of salt and there's already quite a lot on your plate, I wouldn't put it on. But for me, obviously being a chef, can't get enough of it. So I'm going to put a bit on there, quite a lot, but that's, I just remember, it is salty. And then just spread. Now, the next thing on the plate is this mushroom mix. So I'm going to aim for 2 towers, one at the front, one at the back. The back one is going to be the bigger one. So when you're eating the dish, you have that height. So when you go stand on the stage at the theatre, you look up, it goes all the way to the top. That's what I'm aiming for. So when you're looking back here, you can actually see the height. You can see the things at the back. And then the front one, like I said, slightly smaller. Next, I'm going to put on a little bit of mushroom so we cook. So the king oyster mushroom, I'm going to put that right in front of that big tower at the back. And then I'm going to put some of the shiitakes, just pushing them in. I like to put them upside down because then you get that spike coming up the top, which is again another layer of height. Then the shimajis, just trying to find space where there is. If there aren't any, just pop them in your mouth, don't tell anyone. It's absolutely fine, I won't tell anyone. Now for the pickles. So these are obviously the shimaji mushrooms that have been pickled, bright white, and that's going to give the contrast. So you've got the caramelised colours on there, you've got the green from the herbs, and then you've got the bright white from the raws. And again, like I said, I'm putting them upside down. A lot of chefs, they want to make it look alive, so they put it the other way up. But me personally, I think the height's a bit more impressive. I'm going to get this bad boy on there, massive one. Next, pickled shallot rings. I like to try and have my rings hanging off things. It makes it look like it's clinging onto it more than, yeah, a little bit like it's not meant to be there. I think it's a bit fun. So again, if it's getting a bit tight, don't try and get them all on. Although they are absolutely delicious. So don't throw them away. If you're not going to put them on, yeah, send them back to me or you can eat them yourself. They are amazing. And then finally, we're going to go for 1 raw mushroom slice. So I'll turn this around and show you what I've got. So you can see from that end, you've got that height going back, like the theatre. So this is the big one, this is the small one. First thing I did again was the mushroom, the king oyster, then the little cooked ones, and then the pickles. And now, I'm just going to put it on the plate. So the idea is you're going to have it on the polar opposite side as the yoghurt. So you have that sort of play symbol. You probably see it on, well, in the future of this course, it's probably my favourite time I play in. I like to see 2 lines. I think it looks nice on the eye. So you can just, this obviously has been toasted, so it's quite hard. You can just pick that straight up. If you're worried about it bending in the middle, just get a burger flipper or some sort of fish slice. At this point, just make sure that you've got the plate the right way around. So I'm going to have this as the top. So this is what would face the customers or would face you. So then I'm going to have to turn this around the other way again. And just pop that, like I said, on the polar opposite side of that. Just take a step back, make sure you're happy with the positioning. I think this could slide just across a little bit, so you get like a nice even amount from either side. Finally, the set powder. I'm only going to put this on the yoghurt, so you get that white yoghurt underneath coming through with brownness on top. So again, you're always looking for contrast, opposites. It's what the eye looks for. It's easier to find. So the spoon, this is exactly why I have the spoons, to stop it going all over the other side of the plate. So when you're using the powders, you don't want to be hitting the side of the C-sieve hard, because otherwise it will just all fall out in one location. So you want height and to be gentle. So I've got quite high up, and then just being gentle. A little bit more there. And there you have it, guys. You'll start mushrooms on toast, caramelised yoghurt, walnut pickled onions, shimaji mushrooms pickled. You've got a mushroom mix in there with an umami mushroom ketchup, and your soy gel. I hope you enjoy it. And then after this, we're going to move on to cooking the broccoli, the tender stem, for the final part of your main course. I'll see you then. Right, so for the miso broccoli, I've just emptied the bag into a bowl, and you're going to see, because it's been backpacked quite high, it's going to be stuck together like this. So you just want to break them apart. So when it hits the pan, you're not having to break them apart then. So it just hits it, and it's straight into cooking how we want it. Okay, so you can feel that pan is just about to get up to smoking point. Just before it does, we're going to add the broccoli in. Like I said, it's almost like a stir fry. So the key with stir fry, loads of heat, cooking everything really quickly. So just starting to smoke, straight in. And like I said, no oil whatsoever. And you're going to start getting a nice charred effect on the broccoli. So get it in, make sure it's nice and flat. So it's probably been on for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and that's all it's going to take. You don't want to overcook your broccoli, otherwise it's going to go super soft and taste like the sort of stuff you get at a carvery or some dodgy Sunday roast somewhere. Once that's done, we'll just take it over and we can start plating. The thing I'm going to do is just take the broccoli out. I'm going to put it on a separate serving bowl so the plate looks a little bit prettier later. So you can use a spoon, use your fingers, use anything you want, just make sure you don't burn yourself. Miso broccoli. Take your pork belly out onto your board. I'm just going to put a little bit of the brine along the top. So quite a good, generous helping. Grab yourself a spoon. Then the back of the spoon, just flatten it out so it's nice and even. Gives it a nice little gloss as well. And then there's two different approaches to this. You can either go for the neat approach, where you get everything to stay on top. So with that, just dress it on the chopping board like this, or on any sort of tray, and then transport it to your plate. So again, use a palette knife or a knife, anything like that, and just carefully place it on the plate. If you do get any little fallers, don't worry about it. And now for the tea mayonnaise. So again, like I said earlier, one of my favourite mayonnaises, so I'm going to put quite a lot on the plate. And I'm just going to put it on the side here, pushing down nice and even, making sure you get a nice circle. Put the two together, and then you have it. Simple. Comfy pork belly, tea mayonnaise, shoestring potatoes, and miso broccoli. Enjoy. So like I was saying, two different methods. The neat one, where everything sort of stays on top. You've got a bit more of a rugged approach where you can just, once it's like this, obviously you've still got quite a lot of these potatoes left, you don't want to waste them. Just start chucking them on top as well. And don't worry if they start falling everywhere. Just try and keep them as much on the pork as you can. If you fancy it as well, you'll have a lot more of this gherkin gel. Just go around the plate, putting down little dots. And as soon as you tuck in, you'll start eating them up. You can go 3, get bigger and smaller. Just go to town with it. It's all the good stuff at the end of the day. And you'll probably find even after that, you're going to have a little bit of both of them left. Get creative at home. This go amazing with anything. Put it on your sandwiches, put it with your chips, absolutely everything. And this, anything you can think of with a gherkin. So ham sandwich with mustard, pickles, add this with it and you won't regret it. And then just dig in. Alright guys, so now for dessert, your burnt butter set custard, fennel sablé and your lime gel with a nettle powder. So what we're going to need, obviously your dessert, your base dessert, your little sachet of nettle powder, some form of small dessert plate. You're going to want like a flipper. It doesn't have to be this small, a large one's fine, one of those big burger ones is going to work absolutely fine. A sieve, ideally a tea sieve. If you don't have one, just use a large sieve and a spoon. Although if you are using the large sieve, get a spare plate. The spoon purpose is going to catch the nettle powder as we pour it in. So first of all, we'll get the nettle powder into the sieve. So the best way to open these little sachets, so you can see there's a thick end which is got the nettle powder and it'll be green, and there's the other end, the thin end, which doesn't. So you just want to take this end, take it to the top, so it comes out of there, open it up like this, and then make sure the nettle's at the bottom, the nettle powder's at the bottom. And now open this side up, it comes out, and now we're sort of rocking and rolling. If you open up, you can just see it's in there. I'm going to keep the nettle powder in there because I'm going to use this as a funnel. So just straighten that end up. And if you come over here, you can see I've got my tea sieve with my spoon underneath. It's going to drop straight through. It's quite a fine powder. Okay, cool. So that's ready. Next thing I'm going to do, get the dessert onto the plate. So aiming for the centre. If you've got a big plate and you want to put it off centre, that's okay. Just really get creative. But how I'm going to do it for this size plate, bang on the centre. So take your flipper, get it as far under as you can, and then gently lift it up. Put it into the middle. So I've put my thumb now on the corner of the parchment paper to stop it moving. Now we're going to just take this parchment paper off. So again, just put your finger underneath it, grab it, hold the dessert gently, and just pull the parchment off. Cool. You can sort of, if you've made it a little bit wonky at this stage, you could get your hands and sort of try and round it up, but I wouldn't bother too much. Once you get the nettle powder on there, it is going to cover up any sort of fingerprints or blemishes that you've just made. Nice. For the nettle powder, lift up your sieve and keep your spoon underneath. So if you're using the big sieve, you'd have your plate underneath, but obviously I'm using the tea sieve, so I've got my spoon. And now the key with this, because obviously it's quite a fine powder, you don't want to start hitting it, otherwise it's going to fall out in one big lump in the middle. So take it quite high and just gently, just gentle taps like this. See, barely anything's coming out at all. It gives you much more control over it, and you'll find that the end result's going to look a lot prettier than a big lump at the top and a big lump on top. So I'm sort of going for the one half covered in the powder, while the other half is going to be clean plate. And as you can tell with dessert, I like half plating. See, I went a bit too much there, but that's okay. And just get creative with it. Really, there's no wrong way at the end of the day. It's not going to overpower the dish, it's going to be like a little savoury kick in otherwise quite a sweet dessert. Oh, perfect. And there you have it, guys. Your final course. Set burnt custard, fennel sablé, lime gel and a nettle powder. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed the whole thing. Next week on Saturday we're going to do the same thing but with a completely different menu. So look out for our flyers, and our menus will post on social media and on emails and stuff like that. Just remember that this week sold out very quickly, so if you are interested, get your interest into us as soon as possible. And again, we really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.